All right. Well, welcome to another Faith Horizons podcast. Today I'm here with Jason Elvis. Jason Elvis, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Jason Elvis is the CEO of ReHope, which is an organization in Kansas City that helps women who are coming out of human trafficking. And John, you were able to connect with Jason Elvis and get him on the show today.
Yeah. So I reached out to him here a while back, and he was gracious enough to accept our invitation to be here, and we're happy to have him. I think this is going to be a good show because this is a topic that really needs to be talked about.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. And anyway, so tell us just a little bit about yourself, and then how did you get into working with ReHope, and then we'll go into talking about ReHope.
Okay. Yeah. So I spent my first career, if you will, for 25 years and 4 months in the Army.
Okay.
And then as I was coming out of the Army, I was praying about what God wanted me to do next. I knew I was going to retire around 2020. I knew I was going to retire in the next few years. A unique series of events got me in a specific chapel service, made aware of the problem of human trafficking kind of on a global scale. And then I started researching that just on my own a little bit and really just felt like that was a place to make an impact when I retired. And as I was getting ready to retire, I contacted ReHope. I did a transition internship or fellowship with them as I was finishing up my last 6 months in the Army.
Yeah.
And then after I finished all that paperwork, I came on to work with them for full time. And that was in October of 2022.
Okay.
And so I've been with the organization ever since.
You've been with them for 4 years, and then how long have you been CEO?
Yep. So I was asked by the board to be the CEO in the fall of 2023, and
cool.
officially took over that role in January of 2024. So I've been stumbling through being a CEO for the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's so cool. Anyway, yeah, how else are you supposed to do it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so tell us just a little bit about ReHope. You guys have got we're going to talk about how many women are normally in the program, and then just the different stages that women go through, and then how you get them and all those things. So just
sure.
give us a little bit of an overhead, the vision statement, and then
Okay. So I'll hit our mission statement here in a little bit, but actually I'll do it right now. So ReHope, we elevate and empower survivors of human trafficking and sexual exploitation through our faith-based, trauma-informed recovery and residential programs. And we have 2 programs specifically at the moment. Our first program is our Crisis Stabilization Home, and that is a place for a survivor who's just coming out of trauma to have a safe place to come out of fight or flight, to know that her next steps are being considered and being planned out, and that our staff is there to help her do that. So they'll be with us for 30, 60, maybe 90 days, and they'll go to medical appointments that they need. They'll reestablish or request at least identification. A lot of times when a survivor comes to us, they've got no identification that's been taken or kept by their trafficker. So we'll do that. We'll figure out, our case managers figure out what kind of all of those things that honestly we take for granted that a survivor needs in order to progress down what's called the continuum of care. But then also we're always having that longer term look and try to get that process started so that after their time in crisis, after they're stabilized, that's why we call it crisis stabilization. After they're stabilized and can make the best decision for themselves with our help and input, they can go to maybe another program. They can go back to a safe contact. They can even maybe go back out on their own. But for the most part, we see that survivors coming out of our crisis stabilization home are going to a long-term program, and we have a long-term program. It's actually our longest running program is ReHope Farms. Crisis is down in is in Kansas City, Kansas, and then ReHope Farms is in Harrisonville, Missouri.
Okay, so the crisis stage. So like that, like you said, there you have two programs. So that program is basically to deal with somebody that's coming out of that, and you're receiving those women from multiple different.
Right. There's a lot of different ways that we get referrals and end up doing an intake call. So law enforcement and even healthcare entities in the metro and the surrounding region, they've got our phone number. They know us. They'll give us a call if they're doing a sting or a bust, or if even a traffic stop turns into something more, right? As law enforcement continues to get more educated and trained on signs and indicators of human trafficking, they're starting to realize, okay, this situation may be a little bit different than even how it was described. So they ask some probing questions, then realize, hey, I've got a potential survivor on my hands and need to get her to safety. Same thing with the healthcare system. And then there's some national referring networks, the National Trafficking Hotline, Rescue America is probably who we work with the most. And then the Safe House Project, they're all essentially referral agencies. They take calls from people in crisis, people in exploitation, and then they reach out to us and see if we have space, if we are structured and set up to take whatever that individual's specific needs are, right? Sometimes you'll have people that demand that they travel with their pet, or that they come into a program that takes pets and ours doesn't. And so there's nuances, right? That's just a quick example off the top of my head. So that's why we do the referral call and then an intake and then get them to us. Sometimes that's done on the front end, though. We have had cases where we've known law enforcement in the local area is doing a bust, and so we will have staff on site and be ready so that we can offer services kind of at the point of need.
So how many women are currently, how many can you facilitate in a crisis stabilization home right now?
Yeah.
In that program?
Yeah. So our crisis house has capacity for 4. We've got the ability, if there's an emergency or a legitimate crisis that materializes kind of in the middle of the night type thing, that we can do 5, but that's for a really short amount of time until we can figure out better options. But we have 4. We have the ability to take 4.
So 4. All right. Yeah.
And you partner with people all over the country. So if you're not able to take them, you have other resources that you can refer them to.
Right. And sometimes if we get a call, say from Rescue America, and we're full, then we'll go back to them and then they'll reach out to the network. So Rescue America and the Safe House Project, the two probably, like I said, that we work the most with, they're the ones that will find somewhere else for them to go. And there are times when if we know of someone in the metro, one thing that we've kind of learned through a number of years of doing this is there is safety and distance. And so somebody that's trafficked in Kansas City may want to go somewhere else just to be far enough away that they don't have to think or worry about coming across or trafficker or anything like that. But there's some that would, that prefer the known. And so they want to stay here and take that chance. And so we receive and are able to help people from other parts of the nation for those various reasons. And sometimes it's just the availability of who's got beds.
Yeah, that's so cool. All right, so that's the first program you have, which is Crisis Stabilization Home House, and then the other item that you have, which is the ReHope Farms. The women who are in the Crisis Stabilization House can go to ReHope Farms, right?
They can.
Yep. But they don't always have to go there. They can go to another long-term phased, stepped out of program, but they need, from the crisis stabilization part, they need a long-term program to kind of help them rebuild their life.
Sure. For the most part, it's just kind of been shown over and over again that pushing people through kind of on a time-based or a calendar-based program, when you rush that, you see increased instances of recidivism, and you see those people back kind of trying to start over and things like that. We would love to take everybody from our crisis home into the farm, but sometimes that's just a matter of space. And as we'll talk a little bit later on, we're increasing the long-term capacity. But right as we increase the long-term capacity, we intend to increase our short-term and our crisis stabilization capacity as well after the World Cup, so that we can continue to serve as many people as possible.
That's so good. So tell us a little bit about ReHope Farms. You have 3 phases out there.
Yep.
And before we do that, I just wanted to talk about a little bit about the staff. So we talked about this before, you have 13 staff, but currently of them, you have how many of the women that are currently on staff at ReHope are past survivors?
Yeah. So we do our best to, like I said in our mission statement, we are trauma informed, and part of being trauma informed is being informed about the trauma of exploitation and trafficking. And there's also another term, survivor leader and survivor-led organizations and entities. And so our chief program officer and our operations manager at the farm and our generalist, who kind of spans a couple of she's a generalist. She kind of does whatever is needed.
Absolutely.
They are all survivors. And we have a couple of case managers and a couple of peer support specialists who have come through our program, have graduated, and then stayed on as staff. And so I think the number is 5 or 6 staff members are former survivors, and of those 5 or 6, 3 or 4 are ReHope graduates.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah. So these women that are currently serving at ReHope Farm and probably in the Crisis Stabilization House there's almost half of them have experience in this this business before.
That is correct.
They have empathy, they have understanding, they've been through it, they've been on the other side.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And that's really the power that I see of the peer support specialist program, is they can help people like me that I feel like I always have the best of intentions, but I don't always have the right kind of best conversation, best outputs and things like that, because I've not lived that. And so you take a lived experience expert and you pair them with somebody, and you really can kind of create an unstoppable force there. And so it just helps them. It also helps our case managers, if they're not survivors themselves. A peer support specialist can kind of speak into that and help the case managers understand and see what they're dealing with. But our case managers have been with us long enough that they're kind of
they've been there.
They've seen that. Those that aren't survivors have seen that enough that they kind of understand that. But they can also be used as a check and balance of, hey, am I seeing this right? Is this, because you've experienced this, is this kind of the right analysis of the situation?
And some of your staff are people that you have taken in initially. As people that have been victims, and then they've developed through your program, and they've later gone on staff with you.
Yeah, and that's what we were talking. That's what we were just talking about. Yeah. So, all right. So, just describe to us the 3 phases. That'd be probably the best idea.
Yeah. So, if you think about a survivor's journey after exploitation, it's in the field. It's called the continuum of care. Crisis stabilization really would be phase 0. And then we have 3 phases at the farm, which track along with just some national standards of phasing and things like that for trafficking survivors. So phase 1, you come to the farm. We're on an old country L-shaped Baptist church property. And so you come to the farm, you start in phase 1, and you go into phase 1 living as well. And so we converted the church building to a residence. So every room upstairs was a Sunday school room. Now it's a bedroom. So we have 11 rooms in our phase 1, and you can be in ReHope Farms for up to 3 years, and every phase, we say it's a year, but it's not calendar bound. It's really goal and benchmark and individual attainment kind of bound. And so a lot of people will see go through particularly phase 1 quicker than the year. So once they've completed phase 1, and if there's room in phase 2, which that population goes down because of the bed space is less in phase 2, but that's still on the property. And then once you've completed phase 2 of the program and graduated, then you can spend the rest of your time to equal 3 years in a tiny home. At the moment, we have 5 tiny homes occupied. We have 2 more on site close to completion. We have 2 more that were built off site that are going to be hopefully
trucked up here
within the next week or 2. And so
just phase 2 though, where are they sleeping at?
Yeah, phase 2 for the most part will be in the in a large house that's on the farm's property.
Okay.
Yes. And then phase 3 is their own individual house, and that concept is
how many beds are in the tiny homes or rooms, or how many rooms? I mean,
in the tiny homes.
Yeah, the tiny homes.
So we have variations of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom tiny homes, so that moms with kids can come. If a mom with a child comes to ReHope, they'll go straight into a tiny home. So they'll do all phases of the program in a tiny home, and the child will. Or children. We have a couple of 3-bedroom homes so that moms with more than one child can come and live on site. And those kids will either go to school or to daycare, or we've started a process. We haven't done a grand opening, but we just got occupancy permit. We've got a permit to utilize our community center. The community center has a child development room in it with a bunch of sensory games and little tables and things like that. Yeah. And then some of our peer supports actually have gone to a little bit of training, and they provide child watch while their mom is in.
And the peer support are the people who have been survivors, and then now they're transitioned to graduates, and they're basically on like an intern based thing, like peer support. Group, and they actually go through some. Don't they go through some?
They go through some training through the Missouri Credentialing Board that basically gives them a certificate that says this is a lived experience expert, and based on her experience and this bit of training, she's certified as a peer support specialist, and it's just a stepping stone for them to then continue on. Well, they help out at the farm, but then they can use that to kind of as a stepping stone to continue on for whatever kind of career or job field they might choose.
And they help the women by you had said something about maybe off camera that they help them, like a lot of times these women have appointments and they help them with like
our peer support,
child care if they have children and stuff like that.
I could show you the staff calendar, and it looks like O'Hare International Airport. Everybody coming and going, and the peer support specialists. Some of them are one of them does the scheduling. That's our operations manager, but she was a peer support specialist. And then we've got drivers that take people to appointments and to work.
So
and
does
all those types
actually
of
have
things.
Vehicles too then? Or?
Yeah, we've got a fleet of a few vans. We've got one at Crisis and a couple at
ReHope Farms.
At the farm.
Farms.
We've got a farm truck.
Gotta have that.
I just had a note that came across. Somebody's got to use the farm truck to go to an appointment because all the vans are out on other appointments.
So would that be
drives.
something that'd be helpful if you could get a couple more cars or something like that just to be able to drive?
Yeah, it would. I think at the moment we're okay with the number. Well, we're going to talk about World Cup in a minute, and that's going to increase our need for vehicles, but that might be a temporary increase. So yeah, we would not, if somebody was fixing to trade in a vehicle and they're like, hey, let me donate this instead. We are able to take vehicles as donations as long as they come to the organization and not to a specific person.
Right.
And then I will add on to that, since you brought it up. One of the things, because I think you had mentioned we're going to talk about ways to help. We have plenty of volunteer opportunities at the farm. We'll have plenty of volunteer opportunities at World Cup, which also includes driving. But we have been looking for some that maybe just want to volunteer to do a day of drives, right? To give our people a bit of respite, and then they could show up. They can.
So the farm, so right now the farm has a church, an old church building that is for phase 1. It has a house, which I think was the
phase 2,
which was the parishioner or the
parsonage,
parsonage house, and then you have tiny homes. Currently, you have 5, but then you're going to be adding additional 4 right now, or
yep. So we should have 4 more that are occupied by the middle of the summer. And if everything else goes well, we will have the remaining 8 that still need to be built completed by the end of the year.
Okay, wow. So your goal is to have how many in total by the end of the year?
Once our cottage community is complete, we'll have 20 tiny homes on it.
Okay.
We really, really, really would like to have it done by the end of the year, but there have been enough
you could have
speed bumps and hurdles that
it'd be nice to have it all in
that timeline is delayed a bit. So.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have it all paid in development by the end of the year.
Right. And and I know some people might be curious. We did our campaign for the infrastructure for all 20 tiny homes, and the first 5 buildings were paid for with our initial Sky's the Limit campaign. And then we actually were able to fund these few others that I've just talked about.
So when we talk about a tiny home, we're not talking about just the actual building of the tiny home. We're also talking about the plumbing that goes out.
That's all. Plumbing is already in for all 20.
Yeah. Okay. So the plumbing's already in.
Right. Well, it's stubbed up to the site.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So if you think of a trailer park or,
right. So,
or
great.
RV campground, right? It's kind of the same thing.
So,
but we're
basically we're just. So if people are donating to this project, they're basically just buying homes right now, which is awesome.
Yep. And then there's always the unknowns,
so
right?
There's always cost.
Grass and landscaping and trees and
salaries,
more and more gravel and then you have the
staff salaries,
staff that's going to be a necessity of that as well. So
so if people want to help the ReHope community, what is the best way that they can do that? Obviously, you have volunteers, then you've got donations, and how just describe. Make sure we get those.
And they can find you guys at rehope.org.
Yep. Yeah. So, and that's where I encourage everybody to go, because there's a sign up process for volunteers at rehope.org. For a while, it may be confusing depending on how many different tabs you click on, because our World Cup initiative is being housed on the ReHope website. So just kind of bear with us, which means there's a couple of different volunteer buttons. So if you want to help out with just ReHope, it's across the top. Click on volunteer. If you want to help out with World Cup stuff, we'll talk about that in a minute. And if you type in a certain URL, which I'll explain in a minute, it'll take you directly to that. And the volunteer button is big and right in the middle of the screen. But we do encourage everybody to go to rehope.org. You can donate at rehope.org. And I've talked to enough churches and things like that, and I imagine this audience can appreciate there's really 3 ways you can help ReHope out. You can pray. We try to do everything covered and bathed in prayer before, during, and after. You can pay, which means you can support us financially, and then you can participate, and that's in terms of volunteering. There's a plenty of opportunities, and those are all listed out on the website. And if they're not, if somebody's listening to this podcast says, "Hey, Jason said," send a note to info@rehope.org and say you want to know what kind of volunteer opportunities are out there. We'll respond to that and let you know what they are. But really you can kind of think about everything from gardening to
painting
to painting, to helping out with the drives, like I mentioned. And one thing that we were really successful with for a number of years, we tried to replicate Thursdays because we had a volunteer of the day that came, and she started just by kind of hanging around, listening, seeing kind of how everything worked and the women's schedule and our participants' schedules. And then I would walk through the hallways and she'd be sitting down and she would be helping tutor somebody that's trying to get through that last math course in order to get their high school diploma right. And then she kind of had this concept for a garden in her head, and we got her some funding. And so and then she was known as Garden Cindy. And so she would come, and on Thursday she would bring the lunch meal, and she would just hang out with survivors and participants, and then she would teach them how to garden, and we would have
that's a great example.
So if we could replicate that more than just Thursdays, that would be awesome. But you don't have to commit to the whole day. She drove far enough that she wanted to make it worth her while, so she would come and spend the whole day. But if you wanted to come and spend a half a day, if you wanted to, we have a sewing class that a church kind of heads up and sponsors, but people from other, not from churches, have come and helped out with that. That's on Tuesday afternoons. So there's all kinds of opportunities to just kind of be around our property and around our people, which is the most important thing, and help them out and do things. Like I saw something on the schedule just the other day. One of our volunteers took a couple of gals to their driver's test, right? So, and then I looked back in the calendar, and she had been having a couple of practice driving appointments and things with them. So they went to take their driver's test. They would get their license on their first go and things like that.
Good,
so
yeah.
So there's all kinds of those opportunities. Another one is we've got a kind of a landscape manager. He's a volunteer from a church, and his group comes one Saturday a month, but he needs other church groups to come a couple of other Saturdays a month so that our lawn maintenance and stuff like that is kept up with and things like that. So really there's all kinds of opportunities to volunteer, particularly at the farm. Crisis House has the same requirements, but that property's not near as big, and that's usually covered a little bit easier by some single mover volunteers and things like that.
That's so great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. All right. Well, that was kind of summing up the ReHope portion of this podcast. Now we're going to talk about some of the upcoming things that that's going to happen during the FIFA World Cup, right?
Yeah.
So when is the World Cup? When is it going to happen? It's happening quick, right?
Yeah. So we are less than 60 days from opening our increased capacity Crisis Stabilization Home.
So that's the first program that we talked about, was the Crisis Stabilization Home or house. And currently your capacity is 4.
We have 4 rooms.
4 rooms. And then you said like in an emergency, you could take 5 for temporarily. But because of the World Cup, you guys are you're working with, there's other organizations working on this, right?
Yep.
But because of that, you're going to increase your crisis capacity.
Yeah. So we're increasing our crisis capacity. We're 5 timesing it essentially. We'll go from 4 rooms to 20 rooms, and doing everything that requires in order to operate that on a 24/7 basis from the beginning of June. We'll move into the location. We're not saying where that location is, obviously, for the safety and security of our participants and our staff. But we'll move into that at the beginning of June. We'll be ready well ahead of the first game, which is June 12th. And then the last game is July 12th. And then we are programmed to be in our increased capacity location for the duration of July. So we'll be there beyond the games so that we can just continue working from there and kind of phase out of that back to our normal location in a metered manner, so that we're not just stopping during the last game or at the end of the last game and then kind of packing up and going home. Because we do think that we may be serving survivors well beyond the last game, as people that have come here to enjoy the games, have come here to travel, and then they leave, and unfortunately they're going to just leave, and we will. That doesn't mean survivors will leave. So
okay, yeah, okay. So this is called the, what's it called again?
Yeah. So this is called the Wars Council. As we started talking about World Cup coming a couple of years ago, actually, and then last year we got a group of organizations that already work in the anti-trafficking and exploitation advocacy space, and we got together. We didn't even have the name until like that morning. And I was writing some notes, and we became the World Cup Aftercare Resources and Services Council. The question was, how do we appropriately address the issue and the potential increase in survivors? So that was okay. World Cup, our specialty is aftercare, and so it became the Wars Council. I like it not because I'm a former Army guy, but because really all of the language around trafficking is combative in nature, right? Let's combat human trafficking. Let's push against, and I agree with that. And so for us to be able in the aftercare space, where we're actually like helping people rebuild and mend and trying to provide those emotional and mental health and sometimes even physical services, but it's got this component of we're pushing back against exploitation and against trafficking. So the Wars Council is comprised of about 6 nonprofit organizations that already work in this space, but in order to know who is doing what and when, it made the most sense for us to kind of combine our efforts and our resources so that we could have the most comprehensive kind of triage package, if you will, for survivors. So
go ahead.
And you guys are already probably kept pretty busy. I mean, because I haven't even done a count of how many different law enforcement agencies are in the Kansas City metro area.
Right.
But now during the World Cup, I mean, you're going to be dealing with those law enforcement agencies and things a lot more that are going to be running across survivors.
For sure. And we've
like
had quite a few meetings. They've come to our meetings. We've sent representatives to their meetings, and so the crosstalk is actually happening. And the human trafficking focused entities of law enforcement are very appreciative that essentially we've kind of created this capability and let it be known to them so that they know they have a place that they can refer survivors to and that survivors can go to. So in the course of their work, particularly if they end up doing stings, or if some of their folks, if a traffic stop turns into something a whole lot more than that, or in the course of their policing duties, they're like, okay, this is something where we probably need to get that individual to safety, and then our contacts and things can be activated, and we can, if they've been trafficked or exploited, they can come and receive services.
One thing we haven't talked about is with an organization like yours and what you guys are doing. In addition to needing volunteers in different areas we talked about, you probably have a need for volunteers in an area of security, I would assume.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So we do have a security lead or a security manager that is taking kind of that whole requirement on. We are asking for volunteers. This is a place we feel, because I've been to a lot of churches kind of talking about the Wars Council and giving informational meetings and presentations and things like that. There's a lot of guys that have all the right, they get the visceral response when they hear about trafficking and what it is, and primarily not all trafficking is perpetuated by males, but more than 75-80% is. And so you get these guys that kind of get the sheepdog mentality going. And so we feel like that's a place that that perhaps men can give back to the anti-trafficking movement, is in the form of security. So all of those volunteer opportunities, this is where it was going to get a little bit interesting. agoalworthdefending.com. You got to have the letter A at the beginning. agoalworthdefending.com will get you to the very specific tab on our website, on the ReHope website, of all of the volunteer opportunities specifically for the World Cup. You can do a whole number of things. One of the organizations as part of the Wars Council is Exodus Cry, and they do outreach. They go and talk to women that are working on Independence Avenue, women that are working in strip clubs, and they have online outreach teams that reach out to people that are advertising themselves online. And we anticipate that somehow we will be able to offer services to women that potentially were reached out to by Exodus Cry. So that's another way that we see survivors can be exited from a life of exploitation and trafficking, is through those outreaches. And then law enforcement will help with the exits and the rescues. Healthcare service providers will help with the exits and the rescues. And then they will come to us. The other organizations that will be kind of at the first point of contact or point of need is Value Unconditional, Relentless Pursuit, Outreach and Recovery. And then some of our staff will be in an intermediary location. And then if that survivor wants further services, they will bring them to our enlarged location. And then we will have counselors, trauma advocates and things like that at that location.
And this is the expanded crisis
our
stabilization capacity.
This is our larger
you've
location.
You've created, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if you're going to be taking on staff, for example, that have not already been through your program,
Yep.
What are some of the qualifications you're looking for in case managers or other staff members, security, any area? What kind of the primary qualifications to work with ReHope?
Right.
What are you looking for?
That's a great question. So the increased staff hiring, like the paid positions that we're doing, we're using a whole lot of peer support specialists, which I described previously, right? So those that have come through, and we have a graduation this month, and so I'm really excited to be able to see these women hired as peer support specialists and to be able to give back kind of right after graduation. It's a really exciting time.
So you said you have people graduating now. Keep going though. Keep going.
Yep. And then the other positions we're able to pay for as temporary hires, those interviews have actually taken place, and those people just meet this. So case managers, the people we've been able to hire, meet the same qualifications of other case managers that we've hired, right?
Okay.
Not necessarily survivors. So we have those paid positions filled already. What we don't have are the volunteers to help cook food, distribute food, drive food, do security and things like that. There is an application to be a volunteer on agoalworthdefending.com. And one of our expectations is also that you pay for your background check, and you can do that all on the website. But the great thing is all of the volunteer opportunities, because some of them are housed under different entities on the Wars Council. So if you wanted to do outreach with Exodus Cry, or you wanted to help out with security and transportation and food with ReHope, it's the same background check. So it's only one background check, and it covers all of the volunteer opportunities.
Wow.
What you won't have covered is the training the training requirement. So there's 3 different types of outreach that Exodus Cry does, and Exodus Cry has 3 different days set aside, and you'll get that once you apply, pay for your background check. Then you get the kind of the deluge of information. We've been hesitant, quite frankly, to send all of that out until somebody has paid for their background check and done it, so that 1, we know you've passed the background check, and 2, you being willing, and it's like $17. It's not expensive.
No.
You being willing to do that shows your commitment to helping out and volunteering. And so those instructions come. There is some training that is required for just I described the volunteer of the day at the farm.
Yeah.
We have the opportunity for people to do essentially the same thing at our crisis stabilization location, because we're going to have so many people that if they just want to come and kind of be a mentor and an advocate and things like that, they can certainly do that. But there's training that's required for that. That's on the website as well. And then our security manager, I don't think he's got dates published yet, but he's got a little bit of training that he will be taking folks that want to do security and help in that realm through. And so all of that can be found at goalworthdefending.com.
Yeah, so if they want to volunteer for that organization, they can. And this is a temporary thing too, right?
Correct.
So this is the temporary Wars Council. That's a temporary thing specifically for this increased need during this event.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. That's so cool. All right. Well, so we never got to talk about this before. So what is what was your some of your statistics you guys did last year?
Yeah. So we do have our
2025.
We publish an impact report every year. At Crisis, we had 373 requests for services, and we were able to serve 30 of those.
Wow. That's a lot higher than I thought.
Right.
I mean, I know you turned away a lot of them.
That's more than one a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That's incredible.
Comparatively, at the farm, we had 369 requests for services.
Wow.
So and I don't know how many of those are actually separate requests, because the referring agencies that I mentioned before they know we've got two different programs. And so if they've got a survivor that's already stabilized and just needs to go to a long-term program, they won't even call Crisis. They'll just call the farm. So those are separate. So if you add those up, we're looking at upwards of 800 people that we had requested services of some sort.
That's incredible. Yeah.
We were able to serve 37 women in our residential program, and then at the same time, 6 non-residential folks. And so there are some that just need a little bit of kind of guidance and intermittent counseling and things like that. And so we call them non-residential participants at the farm. And so we had 6 of those last year. And then we had 9 graduates from our 2-phase program last year. And when this was printed, we had 8 graduates presently working for ReHope. And I think we're down to 7 or 6 because some have gone on to other jobs and some have left and done other things. So the really cool thing that I like, and that we I think this is the first time we've added to our impact report. We had 13 baptisms.
Amen. Amen.
At our crisis house.
What?
So they're only there 30, 60, or 90 days. And in that 2-month period,
they were like,
I'm going to publicly declare my faith through baptism. And we had 3 at ReHope Farms, which is awesome. But just to see that, like, they're realizing in their moment of crisis that the answer lies in a relationship with Jesus.
Yeah. Well,
and we want to emphasize that this is a Christian organization that is absolutely, during their training, going to emphasize spiritual, spiritual emphasis. Share the gospel. Share about a relationship with Christ. See people come to faith, get baptized. Partnered in ministry, discipled. Right. There's all kinds of those things going to be going on. That's awesome, because that's the whole point of the gospel. Right. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, man, it was so good. And so, all right, I never asked this, but how large of a property does ReHope currently have?
Yeah, the farm
acres wise.
The farm is 17 acres.
Oh, that's so big. Yeah, that's a really good size. Yeah, it's really nice. So, and then you're just building the tiny homes back in the property, obviously. Yep. So, you guys have a lake or a pond or?
No
pond yet.
There was a pond.
No pond, no lake. What? Where am I going to go fishing? I mean,
keep going.
Kidding.
We did have a wastewater lagoon, but that's been transitioned to a different.
Thank God. That needs
to a different thing. So
Anyway, well, all right. Well, so it was so good to meet you. More and get to know you more, Jason. And if they want to I mean, if they want to get involved with this, obviously rehope.org, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the Wars Council, if they want to be a part of what you're doing there, it's goalworthdefending.com. And I'll have that on the show notes, so they can just easily go to it.
You can also see it right here. If I don't know, are we being videoed?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
A goal worth defending, and then you just put the .com at the back of it. But that's what we're doing.
There you go.
And all of our partner organizations are on there, and hyperlinked to their organizations if you were curious about what these other organizations do. But it's been a pretty big collaborative effort, and we are excited to see what happens this summer.
That's so cool. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. And God bless.